So your Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K has finally arrived. You've gone out and shot with it a little bit, you've used it handheld and on a tripod, but what you really want to do is mount it to your crane too. But you're worried about the power and how you're going to manage it. How are you going to keep this camera rolling all day long without having to take the camera off and constantly be replacing the batteries? Well, in this week's video, I'm going to show you exactly how you can do it. The Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K is an unbelievable camera. It's so versatile, and being able to shoot in RAW really opens up the possibilities for your filmmaking. But when it really comes to life is when you've got it on a gimbal. The movements and the quality of the footage that you get out of it is second to none. It is a bit daunting the first time you try and mount this camera onto a gimbal, but I promise you it's really simple, and with this setup you can achieve all-day battery life. Okay, so let's start by going through all the components that you need to put this rig together. Once you've got all these bits of kit, it shouldn't take you more than about 10 minutes to get out and start filming. So the first thing is the Tilta battery plate. There are many different versions of this online, not made by Tilta, but I would recommend the Tilta one. It's made out of metal. It's got a really nice tripod screw in the middle. You've got your 7.4 volt output, and you've also got a 12 volt output. The 12 volt is the one we're going to be using to power the Blackmagic, and it takes NPF style batteries. So most people have quite a lot of NPF batteries just sat around or used for other projects, but it's a really good option when you're trying to power your Blackmagic. Make sure you've got one of these small screw adapters. You are going to need one to connect the handle to the crane. The next thing you're going to need is this power cable. When I bought the Tilta plate, I think it was around £38 when I bought it. I expected it to come with a cable, and it didn't come with a cable. So make sure you pick one of these up too. I think this was around 18 to £20, but it's imperative you won't be able to get this rig working without this cable. And then you're going to need this generic side handle for your gimbal. This was about £25 when I bought it, but it's really good because you can mount batteries on here, you can mount lights on here or microphones. It's a really nice handy handle. We've actually got two of them, and it just works really well if you want to add any extra peripherals to your camera. This method should work with the Zion Crane 1 and the Zion Crane 1 version 2, but I don't believe they come with a foot. You don't need a foot, but it does make it much easier to set up, especially when you're doing it on a table. You can use a monopod or a tripod, but I really like this foot. You will also need some kind of cage or a cheese plate for the bottom, because the way that the weight is distributed on the camera, it does make it very right-hand side heavy. So all we want to do is move the tripod thread from the middle to the right-hand side. I'm using the Tilta cage. The Smallrig cage would do just fine, or you could just get a standard cheese plate for the bottom. I'll put links to everything in the description below. And then lastly, you're just going to need your Zion crane as well. So we're going to put the camera aside for the moment, and we're going to take up our side handle. Now, all you want to do with this is take your Tilta plate and mount the plate to the top left-hand side of the handle. I would recommend a screwdriver for this as well. It just makes sure that all your tripod threads are nice and screwed up and they're not going to move around a bit. Because this rig is quite heavy and the components are quite heavy, if you're doing any low down movements or strange movements with your gimbal, then the components might move around a little bit, so just make sure they're nice and tightly done up. So then we're going to take our NPF style battery and we're going to pop that into our Tilta battery plate, and you've got a little blue light on the side of it which indicates that it is charging. You've got some battery left in this NPF battery. So then you want to take your screw adapter and put that onto the tripod thread of the handle. Make sure that's nice and tight. And then we're going to take our foot and mount our foot to the handle, so we've got a nice base to work from. It does make it slightly easier. Okay, and the foot, if you leave it alone unattended, will fall over, so just make sure you're holding that. And then you're going to pick up your crane, find the tripod thread, and then you're just going to screw the crane in. Okay, so we've got our battery solution on our crane, really simple. And now we're just going to be putting our plate for our crane 2 on the Blackmagic. When I first got my Blackmagic, I loved the picture quality, but I was a bit skeptical about putting it on the crane. I was worried it was going to be really hard to balance. And with the cage, it does make it so much easier. I don't think you'd be able to do it with just the camera on its own without some kind of counterweight. Just going to make sure that's nice and tight. The way I do it is I have the plate kind of in the center, but off to the right hand side, if that makes sense. I don't know how to explain that any better. Let me give you a closer look of where I put it. And this setup works really well for me. So with balancing the camera, it's pretty straightforward. It's the same as you do for any kind of camera, but I will run you through it anyway. So I just put the camera roughly at some point forward or back. I don't really worry about that too much. And you can see we've got quite a lot of roll. So I'm just gonna fix that first of all. So I know that the Blackmagic needs to go pretty much all the way to the right-hand side. There we go. And then we're gonna fix the tilt. So I put the camera on its back. And basically what you want this camera to do, a lot of people think you need to put the camera on its back and it just needs to stay there and then you're done, but that's not the idea. You need to make sure that wherever you leave that camera, it stays where you place it. So the way you do this is you just turn this key on the right hand side and you do want it to sit on its back first of all. Like so. And then you can see we're a little bit front heavy, I would say. So I'm just going to move that back ever so slightly. So now we're trying to make it sit facing forward. Oh, nearly there. Okay, so that looks good. And then we're going to flip it back onto its back. And we've got a little bit of roll issue, so I'm just going to give it a tiny little movement to the left and back even smaller amount. There we go. And now this should stay wherever we leave it. Okay, good enough. And now that we've got the gimbal balanced nicely, all we need to do is plug it into our power cable. And then we're going to plug the other end into the 12-volt side of the battery plate. So once you've got your gimbal powered on, you've got the added benefit of a side handle. This really helps with a heavier rig. And you've also got the NPF battery powering the camera, which will last you probably 5 to 6 hours worth of filming. I've done a 12-hour festival shoot and I only used 2 of these batteries. So it is much better than the internal battery on the Blackmagic because you would have to take the camera off the gimbal every time you wanted to change the battery. I just think this is a much sleeker, simpler solution. So there you have it. You have your Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K mounted to your crane. You've got all day battery life and it didn't cost you the earth. I hope this video was helpful to you. If it was, please like and comment. I'd love to see other people's pictures of this setup. I think it works great. Thank you for watching and I will see you again next time.